Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and I'm here with my granddaughter, Bailey, and my good friends, Dan and Karen, Jason, and Catherine. And we're expecting that Angel and Lori may join us here any moment. And then for those of you who are watching, if you would like to participate, we'd love to have you. You just need to find us. Well, if you're in our Facebook group right now and you want to participate, you already know how to get there because you're there. And it's just that first post in the group right now, other than this live stream where it has the link to get in here and participate. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about the book, Love, Life, God by Jarrad Hewett. And we're on chapter 10. Everybody jump out and introduce yourself, and then we'll get this conversation going. We'll go from there.
I'm Karen Lohoff in Arizona.
Catherine Clement.
Angel Studebaker here in South Carolina.
Dan Sisick in chilly Las Vegas right now.
Jason Roberts in warm St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay. All right. So
Yes.
who would like to read from the chapter? We're going to start with chapter 10, Love, Life, God by Jarrad Hewett.
I can read it.
Okay, cool.
This is chapter 10, From Trusting to Allowing. One of the easiest ways to move into a vibration of joyful knowing and manifestation is to fully trust every moment and everything. Because of the law of attraction, because of all of it, trust the universe. Don't separate, I got it, but I gotta say, trust the universe sounds kind of nebulous. That's because you don't trust the universe. I'm sitting here talking to you, aren't I? You trust this experience of having a conversation with Source now because you know it to be true, but you had to work yourself up to it. If you were staring at a painting of a giant red dot and someone came in and in complete sincerity said, "That's not the way you draw a blue square," you might look at them and say something sarcastic or completely ignore them. But would you at any point say, "Oh my God, you're right"? No, I wouldn't. I might wonder what was in their coffee or maybe where I could get some, but I wouldn't really pay much attention to them. Well, to be honest, whatever it is that's in their coffee, you're drinking it every day. You wake up and sift through your own criticisms and judgments, and you allow them to get a hold of your thoughts and feelings. And these things keep you from trusting who you really are and everything that comes into your life. It's kind of like drinking to your own doubt. Well, how did we get from the red dot painting to the non-trust double latte? By not trusting the flow. In your life, you have events that occur. Sometimes you perceive these as large events like marriage or divorce, and sometimes you view them as small, like stubbing your toe on the way out the door, which hurts, by the way. How long does the physical pain last? Maybe a couple of seconds, sometimes longer, depending on, well, I was going to say depending on how long I focus on it. Yet, that one event, those few seconds, can literally ruin your entire day. And that ruined day can ruin your entire week. That week, no, I get that. But how does all of this relate back to trust? In the moment you stubbed your toe, you had the choice to do everything from curse and holler and throw things to not reacting at all. Now, we wouldn't tell you to stifle a real emotion. What do you mean, a real emotion? We'll get there, just trust where we're going. Say you feel like crying, but you hold that emotion back and say, "I'm not going to let this stub toe affect my day. I must stay positive." This isn't going to help anything. In fact, it's creating more distrust because you are vibrationally telling yourself something along the lines of, "My feelings are bad," or "I must not express certain feelings if I want to gain a certain outcome." You must trust whatever happens, all of it. In a balanced place of trust, you might simply say, "Ouch, that hurt. I'm going to sit here and send my toe some love." Okay, really? I'm going to send some love to my toe? Seriously? Well, Since love is the glue that holds the universe together, as well as your toe, it's the right salve to apply. But let's try another track. Think of Source as a giant conglomeration of every single radio station there is, or was, or will ever be. You are an extension of Source, and your extremities are extensions of all that you are. Tune your entire self to love and broadcast that, and the universe will completely have your back, as you say. And then it goes into an experience, but let's see if anybody has any thoughts about what I've read so far.
Great reading, Catherine.
Thanks.
Yes, and first I'd like to mention that let's do this from now on where we have two readers and we have one doing the little part. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it might take a little practice. Sounds good, though.
Yes, it might take a little practice, that's true.
I'd just like to say, yeah, the point of kind of getting in our own way with our own thoughts and doubts, and how it was culminating throughout that communication, throughout that reading. I think that's really something to take into consideration, and maybe something that at least I know I kind of forget to consider. Not really on the forefront of my mind.
But as I was trying to do some things for Smith, I was trying to listen as best as I could. But I think for me at least, I can say I've had those moments where I've sat there and I've been in an emotion, but I've told myself, no, I'm not going to get into this emotion, because I'm thinking, well, if I get into that emotion, it's just going to carry over into everything else I'm doing. And I don't want my day to go that way. But then somehow my day doesn't go that way anyway, because in the back of my mind, it's sitting there and it's still maybe bothering me, or it somehow works into whatever I'm doing and still affects me. So I think maybe sometimes it's better to just get through the emotion, deal with it, let it be what it needs to be, and then from there, you can put all your energy back into going forward. So to me, it's almost like you're splitting your energy, or for lack of a better way of saying it, kind of into two areas. And even though you stifle it and think you've taken care of it, but then you're kind of your energy split in how I'm seeing it in my mind, and so therefore you're not focused on the things you really need to be focused on.
Yeah, I think kind of the point, Dan, was also that that it was like how we deal with it, and I hadn't thought of, essentially thinking that we've dealt with it correctly and moved on without, without making a big deal about it being actually a bad thing. But I could see what the author's saying there, and also what they're talking about with Source. I think that's just a kind of very kind of difficult to always believe that, it's always the way it's supposed to be, and to believe in everything is, I forget how the book put it, but to believe it all is the way it should be.
Yeah, I think probably one of the most common examples of this. Oh, I'm getting a lot of feedback for some reason. I'm not sure why. I think one of the most common examples of this is, you know, there's like this running joke. If your wife tells you everything's fine, then everything is absolutely not fine. And I think women are a great example. You know, we try to pretend like something doesn't bother us, or, you know, we're not going to let it bother us, but then we're in a huff for however long until it finally gets out of our system or whatnot, you know. So um, telling ourselves, and it explains this better further on in the chapter. So just to make a short, absolutely telling ourselves that something doesn't bother us doesn't mean that it doesn't bother us. Like, it's just, it's that's why, you know, you guys have heard me go back and forth all the time on, well, yeah, you know, we're supposed to believe everything's wonderful and fake it till we make it, but aren't we in fact then just lying to ourselves and everybody else? And what kind of effect does that have? And it has detrimental effects. I mean, we have to face reality and deal with reality. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, we want to stay in a negative space so that we're creating more negativity, or that we want to stay focused on something we don't want so that we're creating more of that. But at the same time, you know, there's a certain amount of truthfulness that we have to acknowledge about things, because otherwise we don't get the lesson involved from that. And that's why introspection is such an important part of all this.
Well, I just threw something in the chat, basically along the lines of like even for us men, a lot of men are taught, you know, we're supposed to be certain ways and certain things, and we're not supposed to show feelings or our emotions or anything like that. And I'm gonna go from a point. I think that a lot of people can say this and see it, that men have a lot of times with a hard time with their emotions and how they're supposed to deal and act because of things placed out in society and how things have been told all through the ages of, you know, how sometimes how we're supposed to act. Just like same thing for women, how women have certain things that they're told and how we're, you know, they're supposed to respond, instead of letting each individual be themselves and respond in the ways they need to respond that's appropriate for them. So that way to me, the best version of you can come forth. And so that way you can deal with whatever you need to deal with, and then move on and get back to, I think what the book's, you know, trying to get us to is go back to that self-love, and I am self-love, and that whole getting back to that whole core idea of what that is about.
I think that, you know, the fact that you brought up these ideas of the stereotyping, like, you know, how we're supposed to be or ought to be in relation to feelings, particularly, I think a lot of men have felt that way, that they're supposed to suppress their feelings and just power on through it, if you will. And of course, a lot of women have been taught the same thing. But the thing that kind of, you know, stands out to me in that aspect is this whole idea that, you know, instead of just feeling our feeling and experiencing it for what it is we judge ourselves about it. We tell ourselves we shouldn't feel this, or we shouldn't feel that, or we ought to feel this, we ought to feel that instead. And that's where we cause ourselves the pain and frustration, is just that aspect that we're always judging ourselves for having feelings in the first place. And I think that maybe that's what they're trying to communicate to us, is that we don't have to do that. We can let go of those thoughts about our feelings that are negative or just negative versus positive may not even be the right word. It may just be more, if it's causing you discomfort in your mind or feelings, then you don't have to do that to yourself. You can simply feel the feeling, experience it, and examine it for what that feeling is, and kind of get to the true reason for the feeling, rather than giving yourself a hard time for having the feeling in the first place.
During this discussion, I've been thinking about an experience that I had this week. It's kind of embarrassing to have to admit this, but I know I'm not alone in coming to a stage in my life where I require a podiatrist, and I've needed to see one for like 5 months. I was told that the one that I'd seen last I would see 5 months ago, and if any of you have toenails that grow and then become hard, you can imagine it can be tough to wait that long. The woman who came is a doctor. I guess I'm not sure what kind of a doctor she is. Obviously a doctor of podiatry, but she was very, very, very helpful to me. And she used some kind of a unit that she could distinguish whether or not I was feeling my nerves at the bottom of my feet in different places. And she mentioned that she didn't want me to be going barefoot. And this new place that I'm in, I love going barefoot. The floor is just wonderful, and it's just a real freedom for me. And she explained that I have enough neuropathy that I might not recognize when I stepped on something and hurt my foot in a particular place. And I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to try following her guidance. A lot of times I just, brush that kind of thing off and don't follow that. And so I was, getting up in the night, putting my flip-flops on, and so on. And I have this great wire basket in my bathroom. I have a real narrow area, and I have this basket on the floor, and I confess I do take my flip-flops on to walk this little narrow pathway, and I struck my foot against that wire basket, and you can imagine all the different places that I noticed the feeling of that. And my observation was, this is exactly what she was talking about, avoid this. And that was my last thought about it. I didn't think about it again. I didn't think, wow, that really hurt. I just, that was just it. And I have been noticing lately, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with working on this book, but some of the books that we've read too, when things hurt, when things arouse my anger or would have in the past, I'm doing a lot less of that. And even though I'm living here by myself, sitting here by myself, thinking to myself, in a lot of cases, I'm aware that I'm not cursing and roiling and carrying on, but I'm just being patient and getting through things. And so when we read about the universe having your back and thinking about that, I'm aware that we can do more of that, and I'm really glad that that's an experience that I'm having for doing all of this.
Okay, I'll continue on. Get back to the book. All right, so this is, and in case for whoever's listening, this is a conversation between Jarrad Hewett and Source. And Source is not defined, but Creator, God, guides, angels, aliens, whoever it is, okay, he's getting advice. So this is a conversation back and forth between them. So Source says to Jarrad, you had an interesting experience with a flip-flop last summer. Care to share? Ah, the white flip-flop thing. Yeah. What happened? Well, I had a dream a couple nights before I left to visit my parents for a few weeks. In the dream, I was driving my mom's car, which is a super awesome Lexus convertible, and I was going through a stoplight down the street from the house. And a big SUV ran through the light and nailed me. The car spun around, the glass broke, and I remember saying to myself, I'm wearing the brown shirt I just bought and my cargo shorts. This must be real. The last thing I remember was noticing all the blood on my shirt and then noticing my shoes. I was wearing a pair of white flip-flops. So what happened? Cut to a week or so later, and I was running out the door to meet a friend for lunch. I overslept and was running late, so I threw some clothes on and ran out the door still half asleep. I jumped in my mom's car and peeled out of the driveway. I wasn't even all the way down the driveway when I realized I was wearing the brown shirt, cargo pants, and white flip-flops. The exact outfit from my dream. I stopped dead in my tracks, put the car in reverse, and backed up the driveway, ran in, and grabbed another pair of flip-flops. How long did this take? Took maybe 2 minutes. And the whole time I was thinking, I'm so late, but I'd rather be late and paranoid than bleed all over my new shirt. Well, as dumb and paranoid as I felt running back inside just to change flip-flops, I'm sure glad I did it. About a mile from the house, I passed an accident at the exact spot from my dream. A black SUV had plowed into another car. The accident wasn't more than a few minutes old as the police weren't even there, and the accident happened about a mile and a half from the station. So you felt like you had been protected. Absolutely. You felt like the universe had your back? Of course. Yet you get pissed off when you stub your toe or when a certain relationship ends? Well, how is that even in the same ballpark? That's totally different. No, it's not. It's always you. And it's always according to what you really want and what your beliefs are. What do you mean? Well, let's look at this with regard to relationships. You recently had a relationship change. That's a nice way of putting it. How would you put it? No, if I take the bait and blame or say something like she's crazy or I got dumped or use any of those excuses, those are all just stories I tell myself so I can be right or feel sorry for myself or feel vindicated, aren't they? Yep. Well then, how would you put it? Let us show you what we see from our perspective. This will also give you a further insight into what you call co-creation, as well as how you own your thoughts and feelings, how your own thoughts and feelings create. But before we start, we don't want to get you into your story because that just keeps you charged and feeling harmed or self-righteous. Awesome, I'm off the hook. Not quite, but in a nutshell, here is what happened. This relationship came together because it served both of your vibrational needs. You were vibrationally holding a fear of commitment. She was offering the fear of being abandoned. This gives you some insight into why the relationship always became strained when the topic of moving or furthering the commitment came into play. In your own ways, you were both looking for drama, and in your own ways, you both wanted a way out of the drama. So you, who had a fear of intimacy, could come forward and commit to someone who was not physically close. And she, who had fears of being left, could commit to someone who was never really going to be there and therefore could never really leave. You make it sound so simple, and really, there were some tough feelings there. Drama. I'm not saying I don't see that. I'm just saying it seems like an oversimplification of the situation. If you had cancer and were going to die, and someone came up to you and offered to heal you instantly, would you say, no, thank you, and hold on to your cancer because you felt the need to honor all the suffering you had previously endured? Hell no, I'd be thrilled. Well, be thrilled. So many times people hold on to their emotions because they feel like they have to honor their story. This is why we keep saying, let go of the story. The story here is, it was complicated and I loved her, but she did this and I did this and woe is me. Love hurts. Let that go. Love doesn't hurt. Only your story makes it hurt. Let it go. I can actually feel myself holding on to it when you put it like that. It's like you've told me exactly what created the relationship. I can see it, but I don't want to give up the picture of how I wanted it to look. And by holding that picture, you're just giving yourself cause for not only more grief, but for preventing everything you do want in regards to love from coming forth. Just take your own judgment out of the equation for a moment and we'll finish explaining. Okay, I can do that. Good. Now, at some point, the vibrations in the relationship changed. Yeah, it was when I started thinking about moving so that we could be together on a more permanent basis. Nice try. You weren't moving to be with her. You were moving to suffer with her because you held a belief at that time that said, in order to be loved, I must suffer. And when I suffer, I am loved. Whoa. Don't judge it or be afraid of it. It's only a belief. So I was saying, in effect, I'll give up everything I want to do for you. You realize that a lot of people right now think that sacrifice is the ultimate expression of love. We know this is yet another thing we would like to make known. Self-love is the greatest expression of love. Now, through this experience, you actually began to embrace love and the idea of being loved. You began to shift and release. You began to expand. However, you can see quite clearly how a belief in suffering in order to be loved would manifest as a fear of intimacy, can you not? Sure, I think I'm going to suffer if I love or I'm loved, and I don't want to suffer. Then I could be using it as an excuse not to be in love or be intimate. So you shifted your vibration and came forward and said, I want to experience love. Even though you still had a belief in suffering for your love, your desire was so strong that it was now possible to push through that limitation, and your thoughts began to change, which began to change the outer creation. What's a better setup than this for what you created? If the glue that held the romantic entanglement together has now been altered, what happens? You were co-creating a relationship founded upon your fear of intimacy and her fear of abandonment. You left your fear of intimacy enough to where you were in a place of commitment. In your willingness to move and actually be present, she plugged into her beliefs about abandonment. Before you were safe because you could not leave living far away. Now you would be in a place to leave. Discord, discord, discord. In actuality, what has happened is you have both vibrated out of alignment with each other, which is not a good or bad thing. It just is. It may feel bad, But look at the how and the why. It only feels bad because you won't consciously move beyond the drama. You ask to experience love, which includes loving who you are, and who you are loves and what you do and where you live. You were in a co-created relationship based on your vibrations. When the vibrations change, so does the relationship. So you see, you are actually being moved to the place you were asking to be moved into and could have trusted that. You were being moved into the ready acceptance of love, but you were moved there in a way that you created and allowed based on your own beliefs and vibrational offerings. So the universe knows exactly what you want, and it will always keep trying to deliver it. All you have to do is allow. Allow by giving up expectations and how it should look. Allow by releasing and letting go of drama. And we'll add this. It may wind up looking exactly the same as you had envisioned, and you may still choose the experience and potentiality of being with her, but you may not have been in the place vibrationally where you could have received and manifested that potential until you gave it over. Gave it over? Let it go. Said, here, Source, I trust you so much that I'm going to get out of my own way. And then it kind of goes to a different part. What do you guys think about that part?
I'm curious as to, how many of you can recognize yourself relating to your relationships in this kind of story of, how you can see things that you've done in previous relationships. Can anybody? I know I've talked to you guys lots about my husband and myself and our relationship and our issues. So I don't know, you're probably tired of hearing that. So if somebody else share something, how it relates with your relationships.
Well, I have to say that I'm one, and I'm sure those of you, which is most of you actually, that have been around pretty much as long as I have, know the story that I've told over and over and over, and wouldn't let go of. And my sister, who I never see as being particularly observant or I don't credit her with seeing things clearly and so forth. She has pointed out to me in my life that, that I continued to tell this story. I really, just a chapter or two ago, Jarrad mentions that it's people who are willing to be conscious that are going to understand what's being talked about in these chapters, and the concepts that we're really questioning ourselves through. I certainly am grateful to be reminded, and I need to be reminded a lot, to give up my story, to give up my stories, because I've been a real clinger as far as, I saw it a particular way. This is how it was. He did this, or he didn't do that, or he lacks the ability to do this, or whatever. And, if I just simply look at it a different way, I can easily see, how totally wrong that I can be.
Yeah, I was going to jump out, and I know I've told, I'm like Karen, I've told, some parts of my story, kind of, and I'm going to throw a wrench in this because I think a lot of us, if we're honest, we tend to want to hold on to those stories because that's a comfort, like a comfort zone for us, or we're familiar with it, and we're sometimes I think we don't want to look at it from another side or another angle because we don't want to, for lack of, invalidate the feelings that we have and say, oh, well, maybe it really was like this, or kind of like that. It wasn't until I got a lot older that I was able to go back and relook at my mom's life and try and picture some things from a sort of her perspective of things she went through from being you know married very young and having kids very young, and then going through you know other aspects and things like that that affected her, that may have ultimately affected things that happened to me and my sister. And so as I got older, I did change some of it, but I still think there's a part of me that holds on to a lot of my story because it in my mind it validates, I guess it validates me and tells me that it happened and that what I felt was real. But am I really getting the whole picture? That's kind of where I'm getting at. I think I'm a lot of times we only get one side of the picture, and we don't give ourselves enough credit that we can actually go in and get other sides of the picture, so to where we can maybe get back to, like you talk about, that self-love and being able to move forward in that self-love and to be able to open up to that more and to be able to get to that full aspect of who we really can be, and in self-love and pure love that we can give to other people that can maybe help us move forward for new relationships, new interactions and things like that, so we can get the best out of the new interactions and the new relationships.
Yeah, I definitely have had stories of my past that I don't care to bring up or discuss because I've been working on rewriting my story, because a lot of my story would cause people to think they think they were in a nightmare or something, and I don't want to perpetuate that vibration. And so I can't really rewrite the past. Nobody can. It's just how you bring it forth into the future and to the now, because all we really have is now. And since I quit rehashing my story, things are a lot easier to deal with. You don't have as much expectations. You expect things to be like the fairy tale maybe that you had in your head or have in your head, or expectations of how a person is going to react and respond to the situation. And so life has been a lot easier not focusing on the past. Because that's what it is, the past.
Yeah, I think what's jumping out to me is that I'm thinking again of how, like with what Dan had said, how we are kind of raised to want to learn the lesson from our past experiences. And I think I'm getting another level from what Catherine read, in that maybe we're, inadvertently focusing on the wrong things and maybe learning the wrong lesson. And that, because like what Dan was saying and what the book was saying when Catherine was reading, we want to, there's a tendency to want to honor our feelings of our past experiences and not let go of them. And but I guess that's not the same as learning from them and moving on. And that maybe there's a deeper lesson in just learning how to move on and what to let go and what to bring with us into the future, like you were saying just there, Lori. So very, very interesting. Thanks again for reading that, Catherine. And to be able to hear that, it does kind of open up new possibilities, I think. I appreciate what you're saying there, Karen. And you too, Dan, also.
Yes, there's the point of learning from the past, and just trying not to put labels on things. This is good or bad or right or wrong, and this seems to be such a issue, especially these days, that you can't tag it as that. And trying to see things from a different perspective and a different vibration. It's quite a challenge, and I think it's something we all need to do to improve our current situation or to not make the same mistakes again, as long as we learn from them.
Yeah, I get that. And I just have to, you're just talking about in the book about a dream where that was sort of came true for that person. And then while Catherine was reading, I remembered a dream I had this morning. I just bought a lawnmower, a used lawnmower for someone. And so this dream had a lawnmower in it, but the dream this morning was really short. I'll make it short. I start off in the driver's seat of a car. I'm in somebody else's car, and I look across the street. I'm like at my house or on my block, and someone's mowing the lawn. And I'm in the car. I feel like I'm about to start the car and go somewhere, but instead of starting the car and going somewhere, I get out of the car and I go over and I talk to this person I get the person's attention who's mowing the lawn, because I want them to come over and try to start my lawnmower. So I get my lawnmower and I bring it out, and we're looking at it, and we're trying to get it started, and we're trying to figure out which way it needs to move or go. And suddenly there's like another person involved. Two ladies. One lady was mowing the lawn to begin with. Another lady came up and is trying to help start the lawnmower. And apparently, so now the lawnmower somehow needed to be moved back or around somewhere. And but there was another car in the way. So this other lady gets in the car, and she tries to move the car, and in doing so, she runs into like 3 or 4 other cars, completely trashes the cars, just like backing out nice and slowly, but not knowing she's bumping into all these cars and running into them, and then she stops with finally stops the car. I'm like, hit the brakes, but she's not hitting the brake. She's just running into all these cars that are parked on the street, and I'm like exasperated at the end of it. And this lady, she's got the biggest smile on her face, and she's finally stopped, but only because I think it's won't go in reverse anymore through the vehicle she ran into. And then that's the end of the dream. And I just picture this lady now with all these mangled cars, and my car. Apparently it was my car that she was driving, and she's got this big smile on her face, but there's all this carnage all around her. And so what I get from that is what's coming out from that dream from me is that I'm somehow, for some reason, letting somebody else getting the driver's seat. And that's the moral of my dream that
That's so funny, because as you were
go ahead.
that's so funny, because I was envisioning that as more like an analogy of, we have all this stuff and we're crashing and banging around and not aware of what we're doing to other people, and not really aware of the surroundings. It just cracked me up.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Just saying that's good too. Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say maybe we could even pull a little both of what you said. One, that sometimes we do give up the driver's seat to other people in our lives, and also we don't recognize sometimes that the carnage and the damage that we're doing by reacting the way we act or doing what we do, and it's not coming from that self-love place and from that place where maybe if we were coming from that area of self-love, it would minimize the giving up the driver's seat, as well as minimize the carnage that we do to other people.
I used to go to a dream circle, and we would share our dreams, and then everybody around the circle would take whoever wanted to speak would, take turns and say, well, if that were my dream, it would mean this. And the next person, if that were my dream, it would mean this, because obviously that dream would have a different meaning to everyone. But then the person could, do kind of like what you did, just kind of look at everybody's example of what it would mean to them and try to figure it out for themselves. I think that stories are are very important. And yes, our emotions related to past traumas are very near and dear to us. I mean, if we were harmed, we want to validate that we were harmed or done wrong or whatever, and we often don't look beyond that point. And that's the whole point of these mindset masteries and reading books like this, because yeah, it's almost like, you guys have heard about how different emotions have different vibrations. And so people are always down on angry people. People that, for some reason, anger tends to be an emotion that people reject and don't like. But if you look on a vibrational scale, anger is a higher vibration than despair or sadness or loss of hope. And so it's actually a good thing, because typically somebody's actually rising on the scale. Everybody thinks when you're angry that you're lowering your vibration. Well, maybe you're raising your vibration. Like maybe down deep inside, you're ready to slit your wrist the next day, and then you finally get enough energy built up to actually be angry about whatever was causing you to think about doing that. You know what I mean? So there's a whole, yes, not looking back. Like sometimes you can get far enough away from an injury or a trauma where you can look back and say, okay, I don't know why that happened, but God knows why that happened. And so I just have to accept it and go on. And that brings some relief. But that brings most relief because you're just not dealing with those emotions anymore and that hurt anymore. But you're also stuffing that. Like you haven't resolved that. Just to say, well, God knows, and so I have to accept it. That's good, and we all have to do that. And it comes down to surrender on some things where that's the only thing that we can do. But there also comes a time where you have to figure out why that happened. Because until you own up to your own part of it, and that doesn't mean that, if you were abused as a child, that it was your fault that you did something bad and somebody abused you or something. But looking at it from a spiritual perspective, where we come into this body to interact with other humans and to learn all these lessons about how we create things, we do have to at some point realize that little child was not a little child. That little child is an eternal being, a very wise eternal being. And the feelings that the vibrations that we hold and the feelings that we hold we create things with those, just like we can create hell on earth today. If we choose to, every one of us could, for the next 30 minutes, focus on every horrible thing that has ever happened in our life and turn on the TV and look at the news and focus on every horrible thing going on in the world. And we could tell ourselves that, it's all our fault, because if we were really living our purpose, we could change the world. And like we can keep adding all this BS onto ourselves, and we could be in total hell an hour from now. We could put ourselves there easy, and we could keep ourselves there for a whole friggin' lifetime. And some people do, but we have to own up to our part of it. And even if that's looking at it from a pre-birth stance, from agreeing, I agreed to come into this body, to have this lifetime. I agreed to this totally dysfunctional relationship with whoever this person is that hurt me so bad, because we were both learning and growing as eternal spiritual beings from that. And when you can resolve that issue instead of just stuff that issue, then you can move beyond that. And I think, yes, get rid of the story. I think that's a, a quick fix. But at the same time, I think people need to drop their stories on other people, because your story can help somebody else, but not your broken story as much as how you healed from your brokenness story.
Yeah, I agree, Catherine. And the other aspect of it is, if we have an experience in our life at some point that's horrible, and then we never get past it because we keep focusing on that. We keep blaming our life on it, and we stay in that space of that pain rather than moving forward from it and being like, okay, this thing happened to me. It sucked. I didn't like it. I experienced this, that, and the other, but I'm not experiencing that now. And the only time I experience it now is when I think about the horrors of it and the unpleasantness of it and all the reasons I feel like it shouldn't have happened versus what I'm actually experiencing here in the now. And of course, in this chapter, it goes into kind of the exploration of the feelings. And if you're having feelings about something, is that exploring, why what the thoughts are around it. And then when you let go of the thoughts of that shouldn't have happened, or that couldn't, I don't understand it, or it sucked, or whatever, is that you realize that you're right here and right now. You're not experiencing that. You're actually not experiencing any of those things. So, oh, very good. So you can, create a level of peace within your own life right now. And, and we do this to ourselves in relationships as well, just like its whole example of, he had fears of intimacy and she had fears of abandonment. And when you're trying to be close with someone and you keep thinking they're going to leave, or you keep thinking that they're going to cause you pain, and you keep exploring all those thoughts about that, then you're going to create that discomfort within yourself because of the thoughts that you're having, not because of the things that are actually happening, but because of the thoughts that are happening, or because of the thoughts that you're thinking. You cause yourself the pain. So like what you were talking about, Catherine, when, if we sit here and we focus on, if we sit here and we focus on all the things that we think are wrong with the world, then all we're going to be doing is causing ourselves pain in those thoughts, where we don't have to do that. We have complete control over our own thoughts and can choose whether we're going to think positive things to make ourselves feel better, or we're going to think negative things to make ourselves feel worse. We get to choose. And I think that's really kind of the whole aspect of it. And then as far as other people are concerned, we tend to get these expectations of how we think someone is going to act, or how we think they should act. And when they don't, or when they do, then we are upset about it. So, for instance, when I have an expectation of, like I go to hang out with my sister and I expect that she's going to be, cranky about this or that. And then we go and we hang out with each other, and then we have a conversation and I already have it in my mind that we're going to be upset with each other, then that actually causes the tension to cause us to get upset with each other. Whereas if I go with the attitude of I have no idea what's going to happen, because I don't have expectations, I don't have judgments about our relationship because I've let those things go, then I can go into a time with us together where we just are in the now, experiencing what we're experiencing, and I'm not judging those things to cause myself pain.
Yeah, because like from what you're saying, isn't it that that it's the thoughts and the feelings from the past that are affecting us now here in the present, and it's the fact that it's affecting us now here in the present that is the problem. It's not that we can't live with the feelings and the thoughts in the past. It's that they're affecting the things we do here now in the present, and that we feel like they're going to affect the things that we do in the future. It's not, so it's like, and that, you know, it's not that we can't move on, and or at least sometimes it's not that we can't move on, it's that we're still allowing them to jump in front of us, or we're putting them in front of us as we try to move forward inadvertently. And you know, but in today's day and age, how we don't have time to stop and deal with every stubbed toe that happens in our day. We can't stop and nurture every feeling and everything that happens each time. And so I was thinking, I mean, I was thinking, you know, most of us, especially me, I wasn't taught to have a routine to deal with these sorts of, to deal with the things that happen throughout the day at some point in time. Like maybe at the end of the day, go through my day and deal and address each thing that happened. Though I have tried with, like, just trying to do help get better sleep. I have taken the time to go through my day from start to the end to try to get it into REM sleep faster, and that seems to have helped. But I've never thought about actually, like, trying to deal with each you know, each issue that comes up. I think that would probably help. But then and then also maybe even just having that mechanism, so that, and I'd like your thoughts on this, Catherine, is would it be healthy to tell ourselves, you know, if we had that mechanism to do that later in the evening, to tell ourselves, okay, I can't deal with the stub toe right now, but I will address it tonight when I'm going through my routine. And if I don't end up addressing it, then maybe it's not big enough a deal. Then that's me telling myself it's not a big deal, so I can move on from it, rather than saying, okay, I'm fine with it, and trying to move on and never addressing it, but giving myself the opportunity to address it later, and then sort of telling myself, well, hey, if I don't bring it back up, if my subconscious doesn't bring it back up in mind later on tonight when I give it a chance to, then it's okay to let it go. And is that more of a healthy thing, I think, is my question.
I think that would be a great process, you know, and if it doesn't bring it up that evening, but it brings it up 2 weeks later, that's okay too, you know, because sometimes things will stay in there and niggle at you and you don't even realize that that's what's going on. And I think the important thing is to just be honest with yourself. And sometimes, you know, really all you need to do is send yourself some love. I kind of laughed when I got to that part of the book. What do you mean send your toe some love? Because I send parts of my body love all the time. And I send my little inner child, you know, sometimes she gets her feelings hurt, and I can tell that it's my inner child. You know, it's not my 58-year-old person that I'm here as now. It's a 5-year-old reaction to something. And so I know that that's my inner child that's getting hurt over that. And I send her some love, or I invite her up into my lap and love on her. You know, they say that you have to be whatever it is that you feel you're lacking. Like if you feel like you didn't have a good relationship with your mother or father, or you didn't have a good relationship with your lover, or, you know, a friend, you have to be that person to yourself. You have to be that parent to your inner child. You have to be that loving partner to yourself. And you have to love yourself. And once you learn to do that, I hate to say it, but you're just like in the book, it opens you up to love. You would think that you would just get to where you don't need anybody. And maybe that's true on a certain level, where you don't need like overly need people. But by loving yourself and opening yourself up to love, that actually allows you to accept love from other people when you weren't able to before. Maybe because you associated love with pain, but when you learn to love yourself and receive the pleasure from that and the comfort from that and being your own best friend, I think we, unfortunately, for those of us who have experienced traumas, we can wind up, and especially if it comes from I had abusive partners, we can become our own worst abuser, because, the worst abusive relationship I had, thank God I was able to escape from that. But for quite a while afterwards, I abused myself. Like, he was no longer there to abuse me, but because of me reliving the events over and over in my mind and through my emotions, I was the abuser then. The abuser was long gone, but I was the abuser, and I had to realize that. So I think sometimes it's just really recognizing who's causing the trauma here, me or them.
Interesting, because while you were speaking, Catherine, and when Jason was speaking earlier, it brought up, and odd enough, it brought up an ad I've heard on the radio about something that they do for kids and it goes back to a little bit what you were saying about our inner child and stuff. It talks about like an older kid, like in school, like maybe 10 or 11, but still has those moments where, they think and act like a 4-year-old. Like, it was talking about, like, being able to remember to turn in homework and stuff that's current, but yet they can still recite all these facts and stuff about dinosaurs and this and that, but, and how they work with what they call brain balance to kind of get, and I think, in a way that's kind of something, that would be good for everybody in a sense of, you know, looking at where we're really at and what part of me is responding. Is it the like you said, the 58-year-old me who is fine and okay, or is working on the next level things, or is it me back like when I was a kid and going through the things I went through, and I also think sometimes we let too much of what other people do affect us, and then we get kind of in those spiral moments where then it affects us and those type of feelings come out rather than going back like and I think your idea, Jason, is great. Maybe at the end of the day, kind of doing a little review of, okay, you know what's still bugging me, what's bothering me, how could I maybe change this perspective on this and come at it from something else to either resolve it, or next time it happens, better react to it and take better control of how I respond. And I think that's what they're like in this commercial, they're trying to teach kids how to be more able to handle, because it was talking about kids all of a sudden having an tantrum because they're being asked to do an hour's worth of homework, but they're 10 years old and they should be able to, but yet a 4-year-old wouldn't be able to. So that's kind of where this kind of led me, in that some of that in some ways I don't think that some of the things they were talking there can really be applied even as adults in a different way and approach in how we even handle and deal with things and stuff like that. Because sometimes I get in my moments and I'm just like, I don't want to feel deal with that. I want to be in this moment. I want to feel this way. I want to react this way. And instead of looking at it for what it is and being able to move out of it and getting back to self-love and being able to give out from that self-love to others, so that way they can feel loved, and then it pushed out even farther.
We are quite a bit past the hour, guys.
Oh,
We're
but I have
ready
so much more to say.
Go ahead if you have more to say. I can mute out.
I'm kidding. I do, of course, but we should have an ending time as well. So I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I feel like I've opened up some things, and I guess the only other my last thing I wanted to say was I like what you were saying there, Dan, and and what you were saying there too, Catherine, in regards to speaking to our inner child. And I think another idea, thanks Karen for bringing up a different perspective for my dream too. And it also touched on me that another way to look at it is maybe I'm not putting I mean, I definitely can see putting someone else in the driver's seat and letting and that being a problem. But maybe I'm sometimes putting my inner child in the driver's seat, or letting my inner child in the driver's seat, and other times, my grown-up side, or whatever level of myself. So then maybe there's some inconsistency there, as maybe what I can also get out of it. So thank you so much, everybody. I've had a great time.
Anybody else have final thoughts before we wrap up? Okay.
We didn't talk to Angel though.
We're going to talk to Angel in a minute. Okay. All right, guys. Everybody have an awesome, amazing week. And for those of you who are watching, if you enjoyed this conversation, then click like on the video. And if you're watching this as a recording on YouTube, click like over there, subscribe to our channel, share the video with anybody you think it would help. And then if you want to participate with us, we'd love to have you. Just search for Mindset Mastery Collective on Facebook, and you'll find our Facebook group, or you can go to mindsetmasterycollective.com and find a link on our website to get into our Facebook group, and then you can ask to participate. Have a great, awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.